My name is Lucas Atencio, and along with Bret Kent and Zach Miln, we are Group 4. For our presentation, we're going to be discussing Imerys. Imerys is a company that was founded in 1880 and is a French multinational corporation that specializes in supplying industrial minerals around the globe. Imerys has plants in 50 countries, around 18,000 employees as of 2019, and has approximately 130 mines, all of that to extract mineral and mineral families for the use in industrial production. Imerys is a public company. It trades on the French market called Euronext. Imerys, just like other companies, has clarified its commitment to its workers' health and safety. They state that they are being mindful of the changing state and local proclamations, and they're working to keep their operations open during the crisis. In this presentation, we're going to start by discussing the challenges of the current economic climate, as well as the recovery that's confronting such a large mining corporation. We'll then discuss the action plan that Imerys has proposed, as well as the financial impact. It's going to be really important to understand the challenges that Imerys was facing prior to the pandemic, as well as the impact that it's currently having on the corporation. We're then going to finish with Imerys' plan to keep their operations running and the company in business. So first, let's discuss the challenges that's facing Imerys.
Imerys is already on shaky ground. In July 2018, Imerys and Johnson & Johnson paid $4.69 billion in a lawsuit. The plaintiffs in this case alleged that asbestos in the talc products had caused ovarian cancer and mesothelioma. In April 2019, Imerys' talc division filed for bankruptcy protection. Prior to COVID-19, their stock had dropped roughly 50% over the last 3 years. Imerys is very diversified. However, some segments of their business will be impacted more by the global shutdown due to COVID-19 than others. They don't really produce finished products. They supply the materials or ingredients for these industries to produce these finished products. So if a manufacturer can't get the other ingredients to make a final product, this will also impact Imerys. So some of the industries that should see less impact that they serve is the food and beverage industry. You can look at it and say that those that provide to the grocery stores are going to be okay. If you're providing to restaurants, that may have more of an impact on them. Consumer packaging, if Imerys is supplying to the food industry or the products they provide to the food industry for consumer packaging, they will probably be okay. The health industry, and then the agriculture. Obviously, there's a lot of struggle in getting food to where it needs to go. Farmers have crops wasting in fields because the supply chains are so disrupted. But I would think this is temporary. Food is essential, and I have trust that solutions will be found. So the industries that will have longer lasting impact that will be seen is the automotive, the construction materials, personal care products, heavy industry, steel, and paper.
In addition to the current challenges Imerys is facing, significant challenges will be faced in the future if they hope to recover from the loss related to COVID-19. Prior to the onset of the pandemic, Imerys was already experiencing a decline in share price. The current price is now less than 50% of their 3-year high. Since then, they've fallen 30% off their 3-year high. As seen in the chart, the stock has taken a 54.4% price hit from their $42.56 per share price in February down to the latest low of $21.12 per share. The last time the stock was priced that low was March 1st, 2009, when it reached a price of $22.06. It's also worth noting that their U.S. talc division had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in late 2019. It's clear that they've been on the decline, and recouping some of the financial losses due to COVID's disruption will be critical to ensuring future health for the organization. Imerys recently published a press release with their outline on how they've planned to deal with the current challenges. The above list shows some of the critical points included in that publication. The full plan was presented to Imerys's board of directors on April 6, 2020, outlining the attempt to lessen the impact of the planned shortfall in volume and the impact caused by poor performance and declining cash flows. Even with the declines, they're seeking to preserve what Imerys reported as a strong balance sheet. Above, you'll see the full outline of the immediate steps included in that action plan. It was reported that the board of directors supports the above points in order to direct the company to adapt. To highlight some of the points, the plan includes savings of fixed costs and overhead, significant reduction in capital expenditures, and additional reduction of working capital requirements based on activity, and significant decrease in current inventory. In order to accurately portray the current state of Imerys, it's important to examine the latest reported financial figures on the balance sheet. Imerys stated that they feel they have a strong balance sheet, and that is evidenced by access to significant liquidity in the amount of 1.8 billion euros as of March 31st, 2020, including cash in the amount of 0.8 billion and 1.0 billion of undrawn bilateral credit lines with an average maturity of 2 years. The company has bonds with an aggregate principal amount of 1,924 million euros that have 5 years average maturity and limited repayments over the coming years. Imerys has only one covenant with a cap of 160% of net financial debt shareholders' equity. This ratio was at 53% as of December 31st, 2019. Imerys will provide additional business updates when it reports its first quarter 2020 results on April 29th, 2020. In its meeting on April 6, 2020, the board of directors also recommended a 20% decrease in the dividend initially proposed on February 12th. So it will be down from the $1.72 per share. That decision was in line with the French Association of Private Companies. That was a recommendation published by them. And as previously announced, Imerys shareholders will be given the choice between receiving part or all the dividend payment in cash and or in new shares. The price of the new ordinary shares issued as payment for the dividend will be set in accordance with the provisions of French Commercial Code. That will be at 95% of the average Imerys share price on the Euronext Paris market over the 20 trading days prior to the shareholders' general meeting, minus the amount of any dividends per share. Okay. Imerys has also reiterated its intention to opt for a dividend in shares for the totality of its holdings. As far as the impact on employees, there have been no reports that we could find indicating actions taken by the company to furlough or lay off any of its current employees. They have published a company-wide protocol listed above that outlines how they'll seek to maintain their operations amidst the challenges presented by COVID-19. The protocol outlines who is permitted to visit Imerys sites, how to deal with suspected or confirmed infections, home and remote working for office-based employees, PPE, personal protective equipment use and purchasing, and lastly, business travel guidelines. Imerys also did something that I thought was pretty impressive with regards to their people ops in an attempt to help people with the transition to working in this new environment. Imerys set up a web page dedicated to their people with examples of how individuals are handling the impact and any recommendations that they might have for fellow coworkers. They include profile pictures, their descriptions, and also some FAQs. So above we have a few examples taken from that response page. You see this profile of Crystal Zhou, Human Resources Director of Talent in the APAC region, who's based in Shanghai, expressing some of the lessons that she's learned from that lockdown experience. In addition, she provides some points on advice given to those who are currently confined and what they can do. I like how she's made the recommendation that folks are paying attention to their eyes, to their body, to some of the ergonomics needed, and to ensure that folks are keeping up with that. Recommendation to take the daily walk if possible. She even mentions that she does exercises from time to time that are based on out of an application that can guide her through those exercises. As to what impact is seen operationally, the group has established a crisis management team to handle the emergency and has set up a strict monitoring process under supervision of an executive committee. As part of the crisis management, Imerys has implemented a robust continuity plan to help be able to provide their customers with needed minerals and materials, even during this economic downturn. They believe that the implementation of serious hygiene measures are required to respect local regulations. And as seen, some of those include ensuring adequate ventilation of rooms to reduce multiplication of bacteria and viruses, maintaining and disinfecting air conditioning systems, ensuring disinfection of surfaces, facilities, canteen, and toilets being cleaned regularly, providing a dedicated waste container for the disposal of used masks, and lastly, displaying posters describing basic hygiene measures that should be adopted by anyone that's having access to one of their facilities.
A big part of business is handling risk. You can buy it or sell it, but you can't eliminate it. Managing their own risk is important, but equally important is how Imerys helps the people in their supply chain manage their risk. In the wake of bailout programs like the CARES Act, many governments are debating packages that will address infrastructure projects. And this makes sense. If you want to get a lot of people back to work, large construction projects are a good start. They will include not only the construction industry, but also banking and finance, engineering firms, heavy equipment suppliers, material suppliers, and companies like Imerys that supply raw materials to the material suppliers. So what things can Imerys do to manage their risk and the risk of their suppliers and customers to make sure they are ready for the large orders that are sure to accompany these infrastructure projects? First, let's look at what they can do to reduce or sell their own risk. So we're going to look at health and safety of their employees, verifying supply chains are intact, and evaluate divisions that have an absolute or comparative advantage. Imerys should begin to assess its supply chain and make sure that when the orders begin to come in, they can fill those orders and ensure reasonable delivery times. This will mean working with their suppliers, making sure they have a coordinated, staged approach to increasing production that does not result in failing in safe practices such as social distancing or disinfection. This coordinated effort should comply with government guidelines. They should begin to develop plans that include testing of employees, interviews to ensure no known contact with infected persons, and that while their employees are away from work, they're practicing safe social distancing and the use of facial coverings while in common areas, specifically at the job site. And then lastly, increasing the vigilance needed for disinfection efforts. These same discussions should happen with their shipping and distribution partners. First, let's ensure that they are complying with Imerys guidelines while at their facilities. But also, they need to be assured that they have similar guidelines in place to reduce the risk that their partners need to shut back down. They also need to look at their divisions, which might have a newfound absolute or comparative advantage due to the current pandemic. Focus on those. What are the demands in healthcare? Can they provide a product at a lower cost than others because of the current situation? Are there certain products that are manufactured in regions of the world that are impacted less by the virus? To get their supply chain started up again, is there any risk that they can buy in order to help suppliers or customers? This will depend on their financial position and access to credit, but they might consider increasing payment terms with customers on accounts receivable to net 45, net 60, or net 90. They might also agree to change Incoterms with suppliers to ex-works or free on board. Ex-works would place the minimum responsibility on their suppliers, who merely have to make the goods available, suitably packaged at a specified place. And then Imerys arranges for the pickup and shipping, taking all the risk on themselves. They might also explore doing something for their customers, something like delivered at place. For that Incoterm, Imerys would be responsible for arranging for the transport of the product all the way to the customer's facility and eliminating all the risk for that customer. Lastly, I think we can learn a lot from the example of Matt Caputo. He shared the story of helping the Mexican chocolate supplier get their product designation changed to essential because of its nutrient density and how important chocolate is to the Mexican culture. He emphasized the importance of the tradition in Mexico and that it was produced using heirloom seeds. Ultimately, he helped the supplier convince the Mexican government they couldn't fail. This allowed Matt to keep his supply chain intact. Remember, he's doing this while he's being crushed by his own problems. The collapse of his markets and earthquake, aftermath of that tragedy. That kind of concern for your supply chain builds relationships that will survive these difficult times. Those who survive this current crisis will need help from others. You are more likely to receive that help if you are not consumed by looking out for yourself, but are working to help others.